Hello everyone, welcome to the series. This is the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Dungeon Guide. My name's Haski, and today we're going to be going through the Deku Tree. So I hope you sit back, enjoy, and hopefully learn something. So we'll be starting the dungeon off here by killing all of these Deku Babas. These guys have quite a lot of goodies for us to collect, which is kind of nice. And interestingly enough, depending on how you kill them, they'll drop different things. So if you wait for them to lunge at you and strike them after they're kind of fully extended, they'll stand straight up. And if you hit them while they're standing up like that, they'll drop a Deku stick. Otherwise, just like I did there, if you just kind of run at them and hit them, they'll drop Deku nuts. So again, I waited for him to extend all the way, and you saw he kind of stood up there. And I was able to get a couple of sticks out of those guys. Those will be useful later on. So our initial goal here in the Deku Tree is actually getting down into the hole that we briefly saw back there near the dungeon, or the entrance of the dungeon, rather. It's like covered in spider webs. And the way you actually get through that, believe it or not, is actually just by falling through it. But the trick to it, or the tricky part of it, is we have to fall from a high enough point within this room. We can't like jump off from the ledge that we're on right now. It's not nearly high enough, so we have to climb way, way up. So anyway, we're going to be collecting the map there. Briefly stopping to collect our first map of many. We will be collecting the map and compass in each of these videos, but we will be skipping the Skulltulas. There will be a Skulltula guide later on, so stay tuned for that. Navi there teaching us how to read and use the blue action button up at the top of the screen. In this room here, we're going to be seeing one of these Deku shrubs. These guys are kind of interesting. Pretty easy to deal with them, especially if you lock on. You technically don't have to lock onto them. But what you do have to do is use your shield to reflect their attacks back at them, and they will, after they're struck, you can't kill these guys, not these ones anyway. But once they've been hit, they'll stand up and kind of run around. And if you get close to them while they're running around, you kind of have to chase them a little bit. But once you get close to them, they'll tell you something. It's usually, in this case, it's going to be mostly tidbits about the dungeon itself, but they'll also give you some tips and tricks on how to do certain things within the game. In this room here, we'll be collecting our first sort of, I guess, usable item. Of course, the map is a usable item, but this is something that we can actually equip and interact with the world with. This is going to be the Fairy Slingshot, something we'll be using for basically the entire game as long as we are a child Link. And it's going to give us way, way, way too much text on how to use it. But of course, if you're playing the game for the first time, make sure to read that. You do actually want to know how to use it. In any case, I did this room a little bit weird. You saw there was a stone block kind of floating there. If you jump on it, when you touch it, it falls and breaks apart. And by intentionally not jumping on it as I enter the room, I was able to use that as a bridge on the way out. So a little bit of a shortcut there for you. Otherwise, if you did jump on that block when you first entered it, that's why that ladder was there. And that's why I shot it, just to show you how that works. In any case, now that we have the slingshot, we can clear out these Skulltulas. You don't have to technically kill them. There's kind of some fun little tricks that you can do to climb up and around them without them knocking you off, but we'll just go ahead and do this the way the developers intended, I'm sure. But yeah, we probably won't be going over any real crazy glitches in this series here. This guide is sort of for the casual player, maybe someone who's playing the game for the first time, or maybe someone who hasn't played the game in many years, somebody who's reliving their childhood. But anyway, here we are on the highest floor in the Deku Tree. We're going to be hopping down and finally breaking through those spider webs down below. But first we're going to dip into this side room over here. This room actually has the compass in it, as well as some other goodies on the left-hand side. The stuff on the left-hand side is actually optional, so we're just going to skip it. But as you can see, you can use a Deku stick there. We're doing that for the first time. We'll be doing that quite a bit, but you can light it on fire and light torches and do quite a few other things. Fire is useful. But anyway, stepping on that switch there made those platforms rise up. And we can actually skip the left-hand one, as you can see there. If you're just going straight for the compass, you could just jump from the first to the third one. And there it is, the compass, which is a useful little thing that shows chests and stuff on the map, as well as our exact location. So we can get a better idea of where we are and kind of where we want to go. And anyway, it's time to make a big leap of faith here now. We're going to come over here. This big Skulltula is going to drop down and kind of be in our way, but if you just wait for it to turn around, you can take a swipe at it. If you use a jump slash like I just did there, you can take it out in one hit, which is pretty useful. But that's our target way down there. And if you just run towards the ledge, Link will automatically jump. And if you do it right, you'll fall right through the middle of those spider webs. I do believe you kind of want to pull back on the joystick partway through your jump, because I think there is a possibility that you'll overshoot it. But anyway, here we are now in the basement of the Deku Tree. And this is a pretty sneaky room. This one had me held up quite badly when I was a little kid. But by pressing that switch there, you'll light that torch. And during that cutscene, you'll actually see spider webs burn, and that's actually quite a big secret. And if you miss it, I kind of feel like you'll have a hard time with this room. But by being shown that the spider webs burn, that's your hint to grab the Deku stick, light it on fire, jump on over, and burn those spider webs down so you can move on with the dungeon. This is also a pretty important part right here. This Deku shrub will tell us a code that we have to remember. And it's not really clear why we need to know this number or series of numbers right now. But right before the boss of this dungeon, we're going to need to do something in a certain order. There's a sequence there, 23-1. 23 is number 1, I think is what the Deku shrub said. So we'll try to remember that. Anyway, there was that switch on the wall there, one of those eyeball switches. Just go ahead and hit that with the slingshot. We'll be seeing those all over Ocarina of Time, so we'll be very familiar with those as we move on in the game. This room right here is kind of fun. We get to dive for this switch here. This will be our first instance of diving for something in Ocarina of Time. It is something that we'll do every once in a while. In this case, it's just a simple switch. It'll dive down there and hit it with Link's body, which will press it, and it'll lower the water, which will allow us to hopefully land on this moving platform, which will go underneath that spike trap there. I'm not even really that mad that I missed that jump, because we can kind of see just how much time we have to actually make it underneath that trap before the water resets. If you listen, there's like a clock noise, right? This kind of sounds like a clock, I guess. That's the game letting you know that there's some sort of timer going on. We'll hear that a lot, and especially later dungeons where there's like switches, you'll like hit a switch and maybe a platform will move or a door will open or whatever, and you have to like do something within a certain amount of time or else the whole thing resets and you have to start over. So this room is like that. If you don't make it in time, the water goes back up. I think I just heard it there. That was the water resetting. But in this case, there's plenty of time. You can wait for that platform. You can watch it go back and forth a couple of times and get the timing right. And whenever you're feeling it, you can go for it. There was a little bit of a tutorial there on how to move blocks. Navi explained that we can approach those blocks. We can push and pull in Ocarina of Time, which is pretty cool. Pretty revolutionary for 1996, I guess. In this room here, we're actually going to be lighting a pair of torches. Those torches will go out if you take too long to like light the second one. So it's kind of an exercise in doing it quickly, if you will. This room here actually has some interesting enemies hanging from the ceiling. You can shoot them with the slingshot, as you can see here. Their hitbox is a little bit wonky. You have to aim a little bit above the eggs. If you hit the eggs like directly, for some reason the shot seems to miss. I went ahead and left one of the eggs to kind of show you what that looks like. They will try to fall on you, and then they'll hatch and then try to get you. You know, as enemies do in video games. Anyway, over here at the end of this hallway, there's yet another spiderweb wall that we can burn with a burning Deku stick. Pro tip regarding that, if you wait too long to put away the Deku stick while it's on fire, it will actually burn away to nothing and you'll lose one. So what you can do is just sit still, and eventually the blue action button will say put away, and Link will just straight up take that burning stick and just stick it in his pocket like there's nothing wrong with that, which I've always thought was pretty funny. But an even faster way to put away the stick is just to swing your sword. So try to save your sticks if you can. Anyway, though, we're back in this room. This is actually where we dropped down into the basement through those spider webs a few minutes ago. We're just like on the opposite side of the room now. And there's actually another hole with even more spider webs that goes deeper into the Deku Tree. This time we can't fall from a high enough spot, so we're going to burn these. So this is kind of an interesting little puzzle, where we're able to use a torch that we used previously, and we're able to jump across and burn those spider webs. You can do that by while you're holding the Deku stick. You can press R, which will have Link kind of do a shield animation, and when he does that, the stick touches the ground. I believe you can roll too, but anyway, this room here is where we're using the 231 secret code that we learned earlier in the dungeon from one of those other Deku shrubs. So there's the 3 Deku shrubs there. If you hit the middle one, which is like 2, if you hit the right one, which is 3, and then you hit the left one, which is 1, 23 is number 1, that'll actually unlock the final door, and this will actually lead to the boss of the Deku Tree. So this is a very cool room right here. I love how this works. As you enter the room, of course, just like on any boss fight in Ocarina of Time, the door is going to lock behind you. But at first, when you enter this room, it doesn't really look like there's a whole lot going on, but you can hear something going on above you. And when you see up and look, it sort of triggers this cutscene, which is just such a fantastic way to introduce the first boss of the game. So here we go. This is Queen Gohma. This fight goes real quick, so try to stay with me here. As soon as she starts moving, she's going to try to attack you. And as you can see, her eye turned red there, and that's really what you want to be looking for. You want to watch her eye. It's normally kind of an orange color, but it'll turn bright red when she's vulnerable. When that happens, you want to throw a Deku Nut in her face, which will stun her, or if you're further away, like right here, you can actually shoot her with the Slingshot. Either way, when she gets stunned, as you can see, you can run up and hit her a bunch of times, and after she stands up, she's going to kind of reset, and she's going to run off again. Every time she runs off, she's going to try to climb up onto the ceiling, and if you don't interrupt her, she'll actually lay eggs, which is something you're going to have to deal with. But if you lock onto her like that, you can pretty much get a shot off every single time, and when she's stunned, you can run up and just swing like crazy, or preferably you can do a jump slash like I did there, which does more damage. But yeah, I think the big takeaway from the Gohma fight is you really want to interrupt her. You want to stop her from spawning those eggs. We didn't actually get to see them in this clip, but if you don't stop her, she spawns, I think it's up to 3 of those little mini Gohma guys. We saw one of them in one of the previous rooms, but while those guys are alive, I'm pretty sure you can't hurt Gohma. So the whole fight kind of grinds to a halt, and you have to like clear out the ads before you can get to another point where you can, resume the fight. So it'll go much easier if you can stop Gohma from spawning those. In any case, that's how I do the Great Deku Tree. Thank you so much for checking out the series. Coming up next is going to be Dodongo's Cavern. I hope you stay tuned for it, and I'll see you in the next video.